This is Dream Power Radio, the place where your dreams turn into reality. Here is your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Hello, 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 and welcome to Dream Power Radio on the Amazing Women and Men of Power Network, the world's leading positive programming network powered by Raven International. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, the Dream Coach. This is a show where we talk about dreams, both daytime and nighttime dreams, and how you can use them to make the internal shift to a life you love. And as a reminder, I'm here to help you understand your dreams. So if you have a dream that's got you stumped, send it to me at debbie@dreampowerradio.com. I can help you interpret your dream or answer any general questions you might have about dreams. So again, you can email me at debbie@dreampowerradio.com. Today's show is about addiction. You may be asking yourself, what does addiction have to do with dreams and your dream life? The answer is everything. There are some drugs that literally rob you of the ability to dream. And the damage that they do to you and your loved ones destroys your ability to live the life you really want. I mean, you can't go a day without seeing or reading about someone who's died or committed unspeakable acts because of their addictive behaviors. But there are also other addictions that, while not as deadly as drugs or alcohol, can have life-altering effects as well. Addictions to ways of thinking that can help us from ever reaching our dream life. Question is there a cure for addiction that really works? To help us answer that and other questions related to addiction, I'm pleased to introduce my guest today, the cosmic cowboy himself, Lee McCormick. Lee is the founder of several recovery centers in Nashville and in Malibu, and he facilitates the production of healing and recovery conferences and spiritual journeys all around the world. Lee also stars in and is the executive producer of the documentary Dreaming Heaven, a film I actually had a big part in also. And he's the author of several books, including The Spirit Recovery Medicine Bag and the new book, The Heart Reconnection Guidebook. Welcome to Dream Power Radio, Lee.
Thanks, Debbie. It's good to talk to you, man. We hadn't connected for a while.
I know. I'm really glad to have this opportunity to speak with you. Lee, I want to start with the basics. We see addiction all around us. Why are we an addicted society?
Oh gosh, that's a big question. I think to really answer that, you have to get into the whole philosophy of the basis that we live, or the basis of how we're taught and where we're taught to live our lives from. So the issue is really cultural, and the issue is really based in our awareness or lack of true awareness of the cause and effect of how we live our lives. Life is simply a cause and effect reality. You do this and you get that. And we live in a culture today, in a world today, where we humans have created what we call a reality, that world that we wake up to every day. The human, I call it the matrix, but the human dream, the human reality of choice. And we inherit such a powerful legacy. We inherit the legacy of our people, of our family, of, our religions, our neighborhood, our socioeconomic group, our race. We inherit a whole identity that we're downloaded with, that's imprinted into us at birth, that either may be epigenetic, where it literally is woven into our DNA and our blood, or we inherit the reality of just the simple physical world that we interact in, and then all the beliefs that we're taught are the truth as children growing up in school and in our religious affiliations. So we simple, or maybe not so simple, we little humans are born into this world, and we're almost immediately overwhelmed with the stories and the beliefs that characterize the particular nature of where we were born and who we were born to. That becomes our reference point for who we are. And in that alone, there is an incongruence, because the truth is what I am and what you are and what each of us as unique individuals really are is a reflection of the one that created us. So my name is Lee. I have a huge story I could tell you about who and what I am. And the truth is, I'm not my story. And I'm not the legacy that I inherited. I'm the one that inherited the legacy. I am also the one that was taught to identify by that legacy. I'm the one that was taught that I'm only as good, or my goodness, my value as a human being is completely determined by and conditioned upon how successful I am, or attractive I am, or smart I am, all the conditionality of this world. And it creates a dis-ease between the truth of who we really are as a conscious spirit being living in a human body. There's a dissonance between the truth of what we really are and the world we were born into. And in that dissonance, there's discomfort, there's dis-ease, and that dis-ease leads us, consciously or subconsciously, I believe, to try and find ways to just medicate the uncomfortableness of trying to make sense of the world and trying to make sense of our place in it. It's a long explanation, but it's not a simple situation.
Oh, not at all. And so is it people's inability to actually connect with who they are that leads them to find a solution through medicating themselves?
Yeah, in some instances, and in some instances, it's, there's a direct series of events. For instance, in a lot of trauma cases, things happen to us as children, or, things happen to us in life. So in direct trauma experiences, sexual abuse or rape or emotional abuse, or, all of these things that are actually pretty common among we humans. Those experiences create a deep-seated disconnection between our being at ease in our body and our being in the world. If you've ever been traumatized, then it's almost as though an aspect of ourself leaves our body and doesn't reintegrate until it's reintegrated intentionally. So we live split apart. And trauma is a leading factor in addiction, because the energetic, the dis-ease, the agreements that we make with ourselves, the fear, the heartbreak, the pain, the memory, all that stuff haunts us. And again, it creates a dis-ease in our simply being in our body and being in the world and it being okay. It's not okay, because we see the world through the filters of that trauma and the filters of the heartbreak that happened there. And then there's a whole other aspect, which is literally, which you run into with a lot of the opiate addiction issues, is that people were given prescriptions by doctors to take a medication, and that medication was highly addictive, but the medical complex up until recently paid no attention to that at all. And it's a very predatory reality that the pharmaceutical companies are purely predatory, and they're in business to make a profit. And so people are given prescriptions, and they take they take those medications according to the direction, and yet they end up being addicted within a month or two or three. And so, there are multiple angles on how and why addiction happens. Now, that version of addiction is simply physiological. It becomes psychological to a degree if it goes on long enough. But in its inception, it's a physiological thing that happens within the body. But then it hijacks the mind. It hijacks our attention. And then the behaviors begin, the drug-seeking behaviors. And then you fall into the guilt and shame spiral. All of a sudden, or maybe it's not so all of a sudden, but it can feel like it, you end up in a place where your life's falling apart or your relationships are falling apart and you're behaving in crazy ways that you don't understand. And it's almost like you lose a connection with your ability to make other choices because you've lost the ability to just be grounded and conscious and aware, and you've been hijacked, by the chemical nature of the drugs in the brain. I mean, there's a long list of ways that addiction manifests, and of course, as you said, addiction is not just about drugs and alcohol. It's not just about chemicals. It literally can be behavioral patterns. It can be shopping. It can be sex. It can be, OCD. It can be any number of behaviors or behavioral patterns that we find ourselves trapped in that pattern of behavior, and we don't have the awareness or the resources to realize, number one, that we're trapped in it, and then number two, how do I break this pattern? How do I intervene on this? Because culturally, typically, you're shamed over it. We shame ourselves, and then other people join in. Like there's something inherently, quote unquote, wrong with us. There's really nothing inherently wrong with us. What's wrong with us is that we've fallen into a trap, either self-imposed or a trap laid by, a lack of awareness or by a pharmaceutical company's chemical cocktails. Then it's a matter of finding within yourself the strength to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next step is actually finding the help that'll serve you, that will really serve you, and freeing yourself.
And that's what I want to discuss next. My next question to you, Lee, you founded the Heart Recovery Center because you were unhappy about a lot of traditional addiction treatment approaches. So what is your approach, and how does it differ from what we would call traditional approaches?
Well, I really founded the ranch because I saw a much greater landscape to the opportunity for people to heal and break those patterns and recover their relationship to themselves. I really did it out of inspiration. I was inspired that there's a far greater opportunity to support and serve people in their healing than the traditional approach. From my point of view, the traditional approach, if it's disease model, which is the lingo that's used, if it's disease model, then you would be defined as an addict or as an alcoholic or as a whatever the label is, that is what you are. And the point of recovery is for you to learn how to manage the fact that you are not a normal person and that you're going to have to be vigilant for the rest of your life in reminding yourself that you're not normal, and that if you don't do what's suggested, that you will absolutely return to a life of death and misery and destruction and addiction and loss. Which, when I heard that, when I checked myself into treatment, it sounded like somebody was casting a spell on me. Like I'm being told that I have to go over and be in this category of subhumans, that there's something inherently wrong with me. And that's just simply not true. That's where I departed from the traditional disease model treatment thing. It's what we are is we're all human beings. And then what I realized is that,
Yeah. I want to get back into that, but we have to take a short break here. and we'll get back into it in our next segment. We are talking with Lee McCormick about addiction and its manifestations on the Dream Power Show. We will be right back.
When is a car not a car? When it shows up in your dreams. Cars are one of the most common dream symbols. If you don't know why you're dreaming about cars or any image, it can leave you confused or scared. But that dream could be a solution to a pressing problem, or an insight into a solution that's been bugging you for years. Go to my website and sign up for a complimentary discovery session, and I'll help you understand why a dream is a terrible thing to waste. Go to thedreamcoach.net for more information.
Welcome back to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Yes, and welcome back to Dream Power Radio. I'm Debbie Spector-Weissman, the Dream Coach, and we're talking with Lee McCormick about addictions. So, Lee, when we left off, you were talking about treatment, the traditional treatments, and how they work or don't work.
Right. Yeah. It's the traditional approach offers you a definition of yourself based on your diagnosis. My name's Lee and I'm an addict, or my name's Lee and I'm an alcoholic. And my experience with that is that that's not true. That is not what I am. The addiction or the alcoholism or the behavioral pattern, the diagnosis that I've been given, it defines a pattern of behaviors. It doesn't define what I am. It defines what I'm dealing with. And that's a huge paradigm shift, that we're all human beings and that we were born into this world. We've inherited what we've inherited. We've made the choices we've made. You know, we've done the things we've done. And if we should choose to define ourselves by this world, then we're pretty much stuck with the limitations of human perception and human agreements about life. Well, that pretty much eliminates any outside influence, such as, you know, spirit or consciousness or the universe or God, or, you know, that there's anything more going on here than this three-dimensional cause and effect reality. My experience in early recovery was so profound and so eye-opening. It was like all of a sudden I became aware of the fact that there was so much more to me than what I had been living in relationship to. My relationship to life had really been overwhelmingly distorted by my addiction. And by doing the work I did, going to treatment, being posed with the questions that I got, the self-reflection work that I did, you know, all the healing work, the recovery work, I just quickly became aware that there was a whole lot more to me than what I had been living, and that I really didn't know who I was. And so I wasn't interested in defining myself as my name's Lee and I'm an addict. What I wanted was to sort out who am I really from this whole matrix of a life that I've lived and all these experiences that I carried around on me like a wet blanket, you know, and how can I get myself out from under this stuff so that I might really look at my life from a new point of view, and learn from all of those experiences, from the addictions, from the choices, from the rights and the wrongs and the goods and the bads. How can I sort myself out from this matrix and reconnect to the truth of who I really am again? And that, for me, is the invitation of recovery. It's not about compliance and counting days and following rules necessarily. It's about being willing to step into the unknown and hold a place for myself where I take 100% responsibility for myself. I take 100% responsibility for my past, for my choices, and I don't define myself by that stuff. I make amends for it. I work through it, and I develop the self-discipline, which comes back to having a program for yourself or a structure for you to follow. I develop the self-discipline to learn how to recreate my relationship with myself and recreate my relationship to my life. That's recovery to me.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I also like to deal with practical issues. So without naming any names, could you give me an example of someone who's been helped by your approach?
Oh gosh, I mean, I've worked with a few thousand people over the years. I've been doing this for 20 years. You know, gosh, I'm not sure I know how to do that, what you're asking. I mean, other than, for instance, I've worked with so many people that I'm thinking about one person in particular that had been to treatment, a woman that had been to treatment 2 or 3 times, came to the ranch when I owned the ranch, which I'm no longer associated with the ranch at all. But when I owned the ranch, she came there and went home and was okay for a few years and then relapsed and then came back and then ended up at the Integrative Life Center here in Nashville, which is the treatment program that I'm a part of now. It's integrativelifecenter.com. So she came to the Integrative Life Center, and this time we worked with her in a real world setting. The Integrative Life Center is set in downtown Nashville on Music Row. So while she was going to group and seeing her therapist and going to meetings and doing all of that and living in our housing, she was also going to the grocery store and going out to dinner and, you know, interfacing with the real world, so that the challenges that she faced in her life, in her relationship to just being in the world, as those challenges came up, she had an opportunity to process that and talk about that in group. So the treatment experience wasn't off in a bubble somewhere removed from reality. She was engaging in that intense work on herself while still interfacing with the world. And in that experience, she realized that she could count on herself, that she could make other decisions. So, I mean, she's great today. You know, I mean, gosh, I've just worked with so many people, Debbie. And, you know, time and time again, it's the ones, it's introducing people to the perspective that the truth is you were born good enough, and your being good enough has never been in question. That is a given. What's up for grabs here is the quality of the choices that we make and the quality of the life that we're going to live based on, and it's really anchored in the quality of the relationship we have with ourselves. Mm-hmm. So that's where we go in our work is to bring people back to just entertain the idea that you were born good enough and you are good enough, and everything else from here on out is not going to be based in you needing to prove that you have value to the world. It's going to be based in you coming to terms with what creates the dis-ease in your life.
You co-wrote a book called the Heart Reconnection Guidebook. Is this what's dealt with in this book about, connecting with who you are and living that life?
Yeah, absolutely. The Heart Reconnection Guidebook is in a sense, it's like the compilation of my point of view, of Mary Faulkner's point of view, of Holly Cook's point of view. There were 5 of us involved in writing that book. And that book is really a point of view that comes from almost 300 years of experience by this group of people that wrote the book. Experience in the medical field as therapists, as healers, as shaman, as, you know, people involved in the recovery and healing work for almost 300 years collectively. So we all had realized some particular things that were very congruent, and we put all of that into the book. So the Heart Reconnection Guidebook it's really a refreshing point of view on this journey of healing and the journey of recovery.
Well, can you elaborate a little bit about, just one point that's made in this book about healing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, one point is what I just said earlier, that we're not defined by the world that we're born into. And as we move through life, as we move through this, what we might call the stages of life. The book, an aspect of the book is laid out in the medicine wheel pattern. It's circular. And the book begins in the East. And in the East is our infancy and our childhood and the experiences of childhood. The East is the direction of the light, of the, the morning stars, the direction of all the fresh new ideas and the new opportunities to see ourselves or to see life or to see the world from a greater point of view. And then you move around to the South, and the South is our teenage years. The South is the direction of the summertime. It's a time to relax, to reflect. The using the medicine wheel in this book and using a wheel as opposed to a linear approach to healing is that as we move through life, things keep coming up again. And our position to and our relationship with ourselves and to the world, it shifts as we grow and we age and we learn and we experience life. So the book is an opportunity. The book offers an opportunity to look at our whole life, to look at where we're at today, and to track the experiences that we've lived that have led us to believe the things we believe. And consequently, it's our beliefs that create the filters that we see the world through. We see the world through our belief system. And without awareness, when we look out into the world or we watch TV or we interact with other people, we're literally interacting and viewing the world through the beliefs that we hold. And those beliefs are distorting to a degree our perception because we look for what we know and we look to validate what we believe. We may not necessarily be seeing what's going on around us. We're seeing our beliefs being reflected back to us or our judgments being reflected back to us. And the book offers an opportunity to work with that and to learn how to unravel those beliefs and those filters so that we might have a cleaner, clearer picture of our relationships.
Wonderful. How can people get this book?
You can order it on Amazon. It's the Heart Reconnection Guidebook. You can order it on Amazon. You can order it from your local bookstore. I'm a local bookstore guy. So if you have a local bookstore, please support it. Take care of your local community. And you can go in and order it. Health Communications is our publisher. Simon & Schuster is the distribution company for the Heart Reconnection book.
Okay, and we're coming to the end of our show. And my God, we didn't even have a chance to talk about spirit recovery and your wonderful trips to Teotihuacan. So how can people learn more about you and about your services and what you do?
You can go to integrativelifecenter.com. That's our treatment program, integrativelifecenter.com. And you can contact me directly through spiritrecovery.com. Spirit Recovery, as you said, Spirit Recovery is the company that we produce the journeys to Teotihuacan, Mexico, and Peru. And we do different workshops. We're getting ready to start doing a series of workshops in Santa Fe. And then my other book is the Spirit Recovery Medicine Bag book and the Spirit Recovery Meditation Journal. And then if you're interested in the shamanic side of life and healing, the Dreaming Heaven film and book that you talked about, Debbie, that you and Straw were so instrumental in, Dreaming Heaven is up on Gaiam TV. So you can access it on Gaiam TV, or you can order the Dreaming Heaven book from Amazon.
Wonderful. Well, Lee, it was such a pleasure talking with you today. We've been speaking with Lee McCormick about addiction and life after addiction on the Dream Power Show today. I hope you've enjoyed the program. Until next time, this is Debbie Spector-Weissman saying, sweet dreams, everybody.
You've been listening to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman. For more information on Debbie or to sign up for her newsletter, go to dreampowerradio.com. This has been Dream Power Radio on the amazing Women and Men of Power Network. the world's leading positive programming network, powered by Raven International.